Morning, Your Excellency.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
I'd like to introduce you to Mnangagwa from ZBC. She's the production manager. And Victoria Rushizu from Zimbabwe, Sunday Mail. She's the editor there.
Oh, okay. Good.
Thank you very much for affording us this opportunity to have a sit down with you on a special occasion when we are celebrating Zimbabwe's independence. But the independence celebrations are coming at a time when the world and Zimbabwe are faced with a very deadly pandemic, the coronavirus, that is actually taken away the liberties and freedoms of the citizens world over. Yes. Your government is obviously making huge strides to try and curtail this virus. But on the backdrop of this kind of a virus, what would be your message to the nation on the eve of Zimbabwe's independence on the 18th of April?
Well, first, let me thank you for this opportunity to discuss about our country, and in particular, the 41st anniversary of our independence. You are right that this anniversary has come at a time when we are going through a pandemic which has raised havoc throughout the world. Zimbabwe has not been spared by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, through our own stride in handling the pandemic and under the conditions of sanctions on Zimbabwe, we are very much disadvantaged compared to other countries with regard to the capacity the government has to mitigate against the pandemic. We have done our best under the circumstances, drawing on our own resources and the cooperation of our people. As you are aware, many countries have received grants to fight this pandemic. Other countries have received in billions to fight the pandemic, countries around us. Others have received not less than 300 million and so on to fight the pandemic. But because of the sanctions imposed on us, we realized that we are on our own and we had to take measures. First, we think it is a primary duty of government to protect lives. But in the process, it impacts on the economy. So we are happy that since February last year, it's now a year since the pandemic affected Zimbabwe, we have done not badly in terms of mitigating against its spread, its infections. Currently, we are around 36,000, just more than 36,000 people affected by the pandemic. And less than 2,000 have lost their lives as a result of the pandemic. We have, of course, imposed very harsh measures, which I'm aware that not everybody agrees with the government or with me in the measures that I have taken, but they've been taken in the interest of preservation of life.
As you just intimated, you have led from the front, but many are curious to know, where is this pot of gold, where others have been getting assistance, multilateral or bilateral? Zimbabwe is here to look inside. Where have the resources come from?
Well, there is the World Health Fund, where many countries have been supported from, and the World Bank has done a lot. The IMF has done a lot in disbursing billions of dollars to countries, but we have not received any funding from the World Bank or from the IMF. As you are aware that they have imposed sanctions on us.
Yes.
We have, however, on our own domestic resources, been able to raise up to now in excess of $100 million US. And we are happy that some of the friendly countries we have remained friendly throughout this period of our isolation have responded positively to our request for support. And this is countries like China, India, Russia. To some extent, the United Kingdom has indicated that it will support us, but that support has not yet come. We have received some donations, some grants from India, from China. But on the basis of our own resources, we have begun receiving vaccines from China, which we have paid for. And we are determined to procure enough to cover the herd immunity, which is about 8+ million people of our population.
But we have seen your republic, the Second Republic, pursuing the re-engagement and engagement thrust. Is it valuable or is it still worth pursuing in view of what you have just said?
The philosophy which we adopted as Second Republic, that of engagement and re-engagement, is premised on the fact that we don't seek enemies, we seek friends. And we are saying we would like the rest of the international community to be friendly to us. We are friendly to all, except those who may not accept us, but still we say to them, there is no need for such hostility or imposition of sanctions. We would want to be friends of all. So our policy of engagement and re-engagement is bearing fruit. To date, the relations between Zimbabwe and the EU is drastically improved. Most of the sanctions and measures imposed by the EU have been removed. And we've begun dialogue and cooperation, both at political level as well as at trade and economic cooperation with several countries of the EU. Countries like France, Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain. We are already having discussions and cooperation since the onset of the Second Republic. Of course, we still have countries like the United Kingdom and the United States of America who still continue to insist on the imposition of these sanctions. But of course, they have their surrogates in Zimbabwe who are persuading them to continue to impose sanctions on Zimbabwe for reasons best known to themselves, who want the people of Zimbabwe to suffer. Perhaps to ride on the suffering of the people of Zimbabwe for them to come to office. But we shall continue to pursue the policy that we would want to be friends to everybody and an enemy of none.
Indeed. You've mentioned a few challenges in regard to the re-engagement policy. So from your perspective, Your Excellency, how much ground do you hope to cover this year, barring the COVID-19 restrictions in terms of travel and other things?
Well, the COVID-19 has had its own impact. And at the end of the day, the travel would have happened had there been no COVID-19 would be different. It is now very difficult to travel. I'm sure you're aware that airlines worldwide have been grounded. Countries like the United Kingdom have a list of countries who are banned to travel to the United Kingdom. The same with other big countries. So as a result of this period, We continue, of course, to pursue diplomatically the issue of engaging and explaining that we mean no harm to anybody. The people of Zimbabwe are peaceful. We seek harmony, we seek peace, we seek unity, and we seek progress, and we seek cooperation and integration freely into the Committee of Nations.
Now, taking you back to the independence, Your Excellency, we are enjoying the fruits of independence, the fruits of the liberation struggle, which did not come on a silver platter. And I must say, Your Excellency, you were one of the people who were not going to enjoy this day as a dark cloud hung over you when you were sentenced to death in 1964. May you please enlighten us on what exactly transpired and how did you escape?
No, I was sentenced on the 7th of January 65. Well, the struggle for independence is a long, long road which our people have traveled. Initially, as it's already known, our leaders then thought they could achieve one man, one vote through political agitation. But the time came when everybody in the leadership realized that one man, one vote could not be achieved through political agitation. We came to appreciate that the oppressors could only understand the language of the gun, because it was the same language they used to suppress our own forefathers in order to colonize this country. It was at that stage in the 1962, 61, 62 that our leaders began recruiting us. For instance, for myself, I went in 1962 up to 64 when I then graduated from Nanking Military Academy in China in 1964. And then we began the armed struggle. It was not easy. We made many mistakes, but as we went on, those also who came after us continued to avoid the mistakes which we ourselves committed to. We were the first freedom fighters trained either in China, well, for myself in China and in Egypt. Yes, I was sentenced to death on that date, on the 7th of January, because I had blown a train. I think it was called Fort Victoria, in Fort Victoria. And I don't think this is the time. But what happened was that me and a colleague of mine, Matthew Malowa, is late, he died. There was going to be the Liberation Committee, the OAU Liberation Committee. It wasn't the AU, it was the OAU Liberation Committee, which was meeting to discuss Southern Rhodesia situation. And then our leaders, Stole, Mugabe, the Maliangas, Nkala, and so on, they were at Kwekwe prison, sent a letter through the late Michael Mawema to us who were in the field at the time. We were very few trainados, trained people in the country. I think we were only 6 or 7 of us at the time. That we needed to do something to show that ZANU was active militarily in the country. So the immediate target which was available to us was the train. So we blew it up, locomotive in Fort Victoria. And then after that, I had the duty from my colleagues operating in the country to communicate to the late chairman Chitepo in Lusaka, but our communication had to go through Malawi. There's somebody called Mawere who was based in Malawi then, and that's where we sent our messages. And from Malawi, the messages would go to Lusaka, to Chairman Chitepo. So we came, we were 3, we came to Salisbury, somewhere in the Highfields, near Highfield police station. Michael Mawema had a house there, and we didn't know he was a sellout. So we went to his house. Fortunately, we took precautions. 2 of my colleagues remained in the what you call now the Highfield grounds out there in a broken motor vehicle. And I, as leader, went to Michael Mawema's house to brief him and give him our report so that he would take it across to Mawere in Malawi. So when I arrived there, I found him, well, there were drinks there and some nurses from Pagoma, what you call Salim Gabena, it was Pagoma at the time. Yeah. So drinking there, so I did what I did for another day. Then I locked the door, kicked out all these girls and nurses out, locked the door, and I had to discuss with Michael Mawema. Then the next morning, I had agreed that he should travel to Marandelas, where he was going to meet a colleague, is also late, Chigaba, who was operating in Marandelas for certain issues we wanted and materials which we wanted. And so in the morning he left, and I was busy writing my report to Chitepo. So when he left, he didn't go to Marandelas. He went to the police station to say, Emmerson, you are looking for is in my house. So as I was busy writing, the police kicked the door, came in, led by Bradshaw, Smith, and Inspector Beans. Those are the 3 whites who broke the door. And the Emmerson who got you now, the guns, bundled me up. Then I was taken to Salisbury Central Prison. Well, I can't go through the tortures we went through, but I went through some tortures which resulted in the death of Alexander Mashawira. He was one of the recruits we were working with who got captured. But when we went to Salisbury Prison, Harare Central Police Station, there's Butcher A20, Butcher House. It's still there. Of course, the name is out now. It was called A20 Butcher House. If you go to Harare Central Police Station, there's a bungalow, small house on the western side. There's a service station here. That's where the torture house was. Where then you are hanged. It's like if you can imagine a butchery. In a butchery, there are those poles where you hang carcasses and they move around. So they put leg irons in your legs, and you are hooked there. And then you hang with your head down. Then this guy, still those 3 guys, the 3 whites, and several other blacks who were standing there. They produce a notebook and say, this notebook is new. Here is a new ball pen. What you write here is new. So someone hits you from that's the black guy now. He hits you, because you are hanging. He hits you from the side. You go across the room, hang with your head down. They hit you this way. But of course, then you go unconscious. They take you down. Then the other torture is that well, I'm president, you can't look down my feet. Mbila Zakondo, I don't know whether I'm not saying Mbila Zakondo. Yeah, where they tie you here and put a stick around, then they turn around. They beat under your feet. And then when you put your feet under your feet, it's brown. They take those pins which you use papers to pin papers on the wall. They put pins under your feet, and then they raise you down so that the pins can go in. blood is out, such torture. And now, during that process, Alexander Mashaira died. Yeah. Well, I survived that one. So anyway, cutting the long
Because of the strong will inside you that you survived and someone...
Well, he had not trained. I'd come from China. Okay. I'd gone through serious training.
So it became a mind game, eh?
Yeah, it's a mind game. For instance, they were so stupid. One of the things, when they said it was not easy to get information from me, the central police station is a floor, I don't know, the second floor. We went there. There's these three white fellows with a two black guys. They brought a TNT slab. It's an explosive, TNT slab. Clipped a blasting cap on a fuse. Then they opened the window in this room. You are looking at Railway Avenue. It's now Counter. I think it's Counter Avenue. I don't know what it's Counter something. They opened the window facing Railway Avenue then. And then they said, "What is this?" This is a TNT slab. I knew what it was. Of course, I said I didn't know. Now it's a psychological. So they put the blasting cap into the TNT, and the fuse was long. Then they light the fuse. It goes, when it goes in, it explodes. But because of the size of the TNT, I knew that we would all die. And they opened the window so that as it bends, or the fuse bends, I would throw it through the window. If I did that, then they would know I know it is a TNT, it's an explosive. So I calculated that, see, we will all die. So I held it. Of course, I was sweating, but I just held it, and they light it. When it was near there, one jumped and pulled it and threw it out the window. But in the process, he also hit his head on the wall. And they came to the conclusion that I didn't know what it was. And said, this guy is innocent.
Did this help Your Excellency in the reprieve that eventually came, this particular incident?
No. My age. At the time, the age of majority was 21. And at the time when I went for military training, I was 19. So I committed my crime at the time I went for military training. At the time I was tried, I was already 21. But the commission of crime was when I was 19. So I was saved by age because I was underage at the time I committed the crime they were charging me.
You speak about this particular torture moment with so much ease now. But I would want to know, how was the feeling when you eventually got the reprieve? How did you feel?
When I was sentenced to death, if you go to Salisbury prison, Salisbury Central Prison, you call it Harare Central Prison now, Kukaringo. If you enter the main gate, on your left, there is the cells for the condemned prisoners, right? I was in room number 2, right? So there's a room there where when people hang, you go upstairs, then every Tuesday they were hanging, every Tuesday they were hanging. So they sounded the machine, which is used for hanging. They go there, then a priest comes. You stand at some place, then the priest comes, he's praying with you, but they're very cruel. It's the same prisoners. When I left and went, given 10 years, I was put to the tailor shop, where I would prepare gowns for my colleagues to be hanged. So you sit there, and this machine sounds for about 40 minutes or so before the hanging. You are hanged, they open, then you drop, then you hang. By the time you reach down there, your neck is quite long. And on the side here, this is where your cells are. Then, I forgot the name of that guy. Kanjiwa was called I forget the name. And there was Father Swift from the Roman Catholic Church who used to pray. And the Father Rebelio was a young priest, just come. He was a young priest at the time. They just come, and then they do their prayers. Then they put in a wheelbarrow. There's a corridor. There's a chapel. You go through the corridor. At the back there, the prisoners dig the grave for you. You are put there. Then they plant lawn, and then they irrigate.
Oh.
It's there.
Wow. So looking at all this, Your Excellency, would you say it was worth the while as we celebrate our 41st independence?
I can assure you that you, the young generation, do not appreciate this independence to the same degree as we do, we ourselves, who went through all these things. In fact, I avoid this because it affects me. Ask me about something else.
Your Excellency, at independence, you came in as the Minister of State in the then Prime Minister's office.
Yes.
Yes, it's 41 years gone now, by 18 April, but we want to understand, General Peter Walls, what really was happening behind the scenes? What is the story? How did he live?
Well, General Peter Walls became very comfortable. Just before the Prime Minister-elect became Prime Minister substantive, we gathered intelligence that there was going to be a coup so that the inauguration would not proceed by General Walls and his team, the Rhodesian Army. How did we know about that? What was happening was that at KG6 then, General Peter Walls was chairman of the Operations Command. They would sit there from the level of colonel upwards. They would sit discussing what to do. But being English and the white people, they drink tea. And they are served by blacks. So we made sure we recruited, I was responsible for intelligence. So we recruited the blacks who were serving them tea. So as they were serving them tea, the generals continued to discuss what they were going to do. And then nearby, the tea boy would come and report and continue serving and reporting as to what they were doing.
Wow, that was a clever strategy.
So when I briefed my boss, the former president, President Mugabe, said, so what do we do, Emmerson? Initially, if you remember, I don't think we had grown up. Me and Rex, General Mjuru, me and Rex smuggled former President Mugabe out of the country to Maputo and to Nyerere. It was because the coup was very imminent. And when we removed him, they said it was no use to proceed. When the head of the revolution was outside the country, he went away to, he didn't know precisely what was there. We said it's for his security. So he went to Maputo, and we persuaded him to go and report the situation to Samora and to go and report to Nyerere. It took 2 days, Maputo and then Tanzania and back. And now, when he came back, we had made a strategy. We had agreed with the former president, Mugabe, was Prime Minister-elect then, to call the leaders, the 5, constituting the service chiefs, to come. There's a Corner Avenue, number 35 Corner Avenue. Okay. That house. Oh. It was security house, Zanla security house. Corner Avenue, number 35, that's where the two of us, me and former President Mugabe, we sat there. And through secret connections, I invited General Walls, through Ken Flower, who was the head of the CIO now, to come to discuss. He says, but what is our security? This is General Walls. I said, but General Walls, you're a general, and say, what arm can come to? Where you're coming, there are only 2 people. It's me and Mugabe. And Mugabe is requesting you, General Walls, Peter Alam, Commissioner General of the Police, Air Marshal Wessels, Commander of the Air Force, General, this Air Force, Army was McLean, General McLean, Army, and then Ken Flower was security. So there were the 5 of them. You come, the Prime Minister-elect would want to discuss with you. So we'll come back to you. After some time, they called me and said, yes, we are agreed. Where are you? I said, yeah, you come to, I gave them the address, but just come in one car. So, oh, that's even dangerous. Why should I? I said, no, we don't want anything, but we will have nobody at the place as ourselves. In the end, they agreed. So General Walls, General McLean, Commissioner of Police Peter Alam, Air Force Commander Air Marshal Wessels, and then Ken Flower, 5. They arrived. I went to receive them at the gate. But of course, we had also taken our precautions. Our little gorillas were somewhere around. So we allowed them to come in. Okay. Then the 2 of us met these 5. Then the president, Mugabe, says, General Walls, I have won these elections and I'll be inaugurated as Prime Minister. But there's Zipra, there's Zanla. These are guerrilla armies. You command a conventional army. From the day of my inauguration, it becomes the army of the new Zimbabwe, not Rhodesia anymore. So I cannot have Dumiso or Masuku or Rex as commander of this new army. I request you to be the first commander of independent Zimbabwe army.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I think we'll bring you back to the military wings later. But for now, we want to allow you to take a short breather. I think we really touched on a very emotive side when you were explaining the torture moment, what happened at Harare's Central Prison, how you escaped the death and got the reprieve. We are going to be taking just a short breather and then we'll come back and continue with our conversation.
You're welcome.
Welcome back to our independence conversation, Your Excellency. You were in the process of explaining to us how General Peter Walls left the office. Can you take us back to that moment where you met the generals and what ensued thereafter?
Well, after my boss, the late President Mugabe, offered General Walls to be commander of the new army, he took his hat, put it on, stood up. After looking at his colleagues who also said, shaking their heads, nodding. So he stood up, saluted, and said he accepted. Then he did the same to General McLean. He stood up, saluted. He went to the police commissioner, Peter Alam. Zanla, Zipra have no police. We had all kind of police, but it's not conventional police. Alam looked at his colleagues, stood up, saluted, he accepted, went to the commander of the Air Force, Air Marshal Wessels, looked at his colleagues, said, we have no Air Force, you were bombing us left, right, and center, but now it's a new order. We need you. Stood up and saluted, accepting to serve under the new. But when we reached to the last guy, Ken Flower, says, but before I accept, I want to confess that we still have parcel bombs, which we sent to you. But I also accept, and I will now make arrangements to make sure they are diffused, the parcel bombs.
Wow. How did you react to that?
He actually said there was one for me. And before, there was some parcel bomb in Maputo which killed one of my security guys. He confessed all that. So that's how they accepted to become the heads of security architecture of the new dispensation, of the new government of Zimbabwe. But then they became so comfortable. You had asked about General Walls. So General Walls, he was very good at wanting to be happy. So he was at Kariba on the boat drinking. I don't know why he invited British BBC journalists. And in that interview, he had said that they had wanted to make a coup, not realizing that Zimbabwe, the new Zimbabwe, would be more peaceful than Rhodesia. They're very happy. But by disclosing that they had intended to make a coup, which he had not formally disclosed to us, that alone, for a military person, is a crime. So I called Derek Robinson, who was number 2 to Ken Flower in Sao, and said, have you listened to the BBC bulletin? He said, yes. So what General Walls has said is a crime. I knew that Derek Robinson will immediately, when he leaves my office, I was Minister of State for Security, when he leaves my office, he will phone General Walls to say, my Minister of Security is concerned and I'd like to be arrested. So I allowed him time. I knew he was going to phone him, and when he phoned him, he arranged for a plane to fly out of the country from Kariba. That was the end of General Walls.
Wow. Right. So, given this background that you've given us, what challenges then did you encounter in integrating the Rhodesian Front, ZANA, and Zipra forces?
Well, after that, General Walls was the chairman of Joint Command. I was then appointed chairman of the Joint Command to integrate the 3 armies. We had our own challenges, but at the end of the day, all of us had the focus to create a new military architecture. So with that goodwill, we were able to surmount the challenges which we were facing as Zipra, as ZANA, and Rhodesian Army. We're integrating these 3 into one. Of course, there was an element of young officers from the Rhodesian Army who did not want to integrate. And we discussed with my boss, and we agreed that we gave them some days. I think it was about 10, 12 days, that those who wanted should leave the country and we will not arrest them. You can take all the arms you want, and they did. They went to South Africa. So for another day, I can explain what happened.
Oh, okay. So comparing that to present-day Zimbabwe, where you are trying to bring unity, political forces together, how do you compare the two phases, where you have those challenges, trying to integrate the army, and now today you are trying to bring where people should speak with one voice, where there's one Zimbabwe for every Zimbabwean, and you seem to be getting resistance, which you intimated on earlier on. How would you compare the two phases?
Well, the first challenge, everybody was enthusiastic about the creation of a new independent state born out of an armed struggle, a very painful armed struggle. So we all had the spirit to give and take at that stage. Currently, it is not the same issue. We have the patriotic Zimbabweans who love Zimbabwe, whether Zimbabwe is in problems or in good standing. They are Zimbabweans. In the winter, they are Zimbabweans. In the summer, they are Zimbabweans. At night, they are Zimbabweans. They wish to determine the destination of their country together. But we have others who do not want that, who prefer to be tools of foreign powers to run Zimbabwe, to determine the destiny of Zimbabwe. So these conditions are totally different from the conditions which prevailed in 1980. However, under the Second Republic, we have done everything possible to embrace all groups in Zimbabwe, whether they are patriotic or non-patriotic, because we are all Zimbabweans, and say, let us work together. This is why, immediately after the 2018 elections, I created the Pollard platform, which has never happened before, where all political parties, the 23 political parties, come together and discuss issues affecting Zimbabwe, so that together we can share our vision and together shape our destiny. The majority of these political parties have come together and we are moving on, and there's a happy situation, except the most unpatriotic, who actually went to America to plead with the last president, Trump, to continue to impose sanctions on Zimbabwe. Now, those are the elements who are still outside, but the door is still open for those who are patriotic about their country, who wish the good for their country, for their people. The door is open, the platform is there. Whether they could be church people, they could be political organizations, whatever association, as long as you are Zimbabwean, there's a platform for us together to move forward and share the destiny and the vision for our country.
Let's continue the conversation on UNIT. Unlike your predecessors, you have openly spoke and discussed the issue of Gukurahundi. What do you wish to realize from that in view of the drive that you're putting forward in trying to get Zimbabweans united?
I think we should realize that, in my view, it is not useful to avoid discussing an issue which affects us as a nation. Good or bad, let us all discuss. In the discussion, we can identify issues that are correct and issues that are wrong, so that in future, the issues that are not good for our country should be avoided. The issues that are good for our country are promoted. So with that belief, I think it is necessary that as a nation, we should not avoid discussing challenges which face us as a people.
So this one particular challenge about Gukurahundi, which to many people, particularly in the Matabele region, is still a sore point. Are you happy with the progress that you've made so far? I know we've seen you having cordial meetings with the chiefs from the province, but generally, are you happy with the progress, and what is your next step?
The issue is not for me being happy. The issue is that everybody affected has the opportunity to come to the platform and discuss the issues, and together we interrogate a way forward to deal with the issue, so it doesn't happen again. This is where I think we are following a proper and a cooperative and a way that will unite again the people of this country.
I want to take you now to the issues economic. I know you're passionate about that, and you declared right on the first day that you want to get more energy expended on the economy. When you came into power in November 2017, there were many challenges which you inherited. And you put in place policies which you admitted yourself that there will be very painful steps, but would need to endure those to endure the fruit of tomorrow. What would you say today? Have you achieved so far that which you intended? And I know in some quarters people were then too happy with the pain, but they appeared to be maybe short-sighted. They did not see the tomorrow that you visibly saw. What would you say?
I'll give a small example before I answer you. Someday in about August 1964, we arrived at a place in the Devula Range somewhere. I think it's Bikita area, I don't know now. There was a beer party. At this beer party, when we arrived, we left our things in the bush. When we arrived, we were received. as we were discussing with the people at the beer party, Pandari, then a small plane came passing, flying. Then one gentleman stood up and said, "Oh, imwimwi, moda kusunungura nyika ino. Vone varungu vanofamba nomudenga, famba nomudenga. Imi kana kugadzira tsona hamugoni, moda kutonga nyika ino." So we still were determined, without knowing how to manufacture a needle, to liberate this country. Now, going back to your question in the specific terms, you are asking that when the Second Republic came, there were so many challenges. And it was necessary that if we had to bring about prosperity, certain things had to be done, painful or not painful. And it was necessary for us to introduce measures that were very painful, that made us unpopular, but we knew that the fruits of that exercise will bring about prosperity and the recovery of our economy. That is my reply.
So would you say a lot of ground has been covered regarding that?
Yes. For instance, when we came to office, we had been going through very drastic challenges of energy, where we would go without electricity. Load shedding was the order of the day, load shedding. So we had to address that. The question of fuel, we had the queues here, left, right, and right, long queues in the early part of the second administration. But we had to impose and create conditions that were very difficult in order to reach where we are today by introducing policies which bring about a resolution to those challenges. Our shelves at one time, they were empty shelves. So we had to find out what to do in order that our people have food, they have the basic needs of life. And to do that again, it was painful. We had no currency. Our currency had collapsed years back. And there's no country that can develop and grow its economy on the basis of another country's currency. But to move away from that and create our own currency was very painful. So we had to have measures to deal with the financial service sector in order to reach where we wanted to reach. But to do so, we had to fight financial sharks in the financial service sector. And I'm happy to say, up to today, perhaps we are 40, nearly 50% in fighting those financial sharks. Fortunately, we are now wiser than we were at the beginning. We now know whom we are fighting and who is behind them. And this helps us bring about the correct instruments to deal with the financial service sector for it to serve this country, not to serve foreign interests. So all these things, as you do them, there's suffering, but there's light at the end of the day. And I think people are beginning to see things changing, the currency stabilizing. But the fight is still on.
Are all these highlights, these positives that you speak about, part of what gives you the confidence to say we are past our worst?
Not only these. There are many things which a family would want, right? Basic thing is food. There's really nothing we can do with regard to food. We must address the issue that a Zimbabwean must have 3 meals. But if there's drought, they cannot have 3 meals. And the country is under sanctions. So you cannot be able to support the population on the basis of imports only. So how do you address the issue of continuous droughts? This is why we brought about the policy of irrigation and the construction of dams. Fortunately, we already have numerous water bodies in the country. So what we had to do was to make sure we promote irrigation in this country. We made an analysis to say if we have X amount of hectarage under irrigation, whether there's drought or no drought, we shall have enough food in the country. And we are on that process. And I believe that in 3 years, according to our plans, we should reach that level where we have enough hectarage under irrigation, which guarantees us food. So the question of food will be guaranteed. Secondly, fortunately, this time around, the Lord has been merciful to this country with good rains, and we know that we are going to have a bumper harvest this year.
And Pfumvudza has also been a game changer in the entire matrix.
Pfumvudza was not really very new. It was there. But when we made an analysis of Pfumvudza, we realized that here was a tool lying which we were not using, which would ameliorate the question of food supply to our people. And let his soul rest in eternal peace. Former Minister of Agriculture, Perence Shiri, we discussed and agreed that it is necessary to make sure we propagate and implement the Pfumvudza concept. Because that one, we are addressing the food question at the household level. At each household level, we have about 1.8 million households in the country. And if each household does produce for itself, we are almost 50% saving the problem of hunger in the country. And fortunately, when we implemented the Pfumvudza, again, with the grace of the Lord giving us good rains, and we have bumper harvest. But that concept will now continue. Actually, the way it is planned is such that the first plot must feed your family. The second plot is surplus. And you can do it. And in the past, we thought that it is still necessary that for agriculture, you need empowerment. So we have now been able to analyze it. We have the first category of farmer is the mechanized farmer. And we must empower him to be mechanized, to use the land to maximum productivity per hectare. The second farmer is the one who uses a donkey or cattle for power. He must be supported also to do so. The third category of farmer is the one who would say, we don't have cattle, we don't have donkeys, we don't have tractors. So they are desperate. This is the Pfumvudza which comes in. So as long as you have your feet, your hands, and your eyes, you can be a productive, prosperous farmer through Pfumvudza. So of the three categories, we have a solution for each. So going forward, we believe that with regard to the issue of agriculture and the food security in the country, we are on the correct path.
Still on the economic path, Your Excellency, we projected that this year we intend to go on a 7.4 growth percentage. In view of the COVID happenings, in view of the third wave that is anticipated to be coming on board, and also in view of our Vision 2030, are we still on track? Is it achievable?
Well, I'm sure you're aware that the last season we were -7, -8 in terms of GDP growth, minus. But if you now go to +7, it means the economy has grown 14%. However, that figure remains constant if other things remain the same. But it is not possible for things to remain the same. So the projection is done taking into cognizance the current situation and the possible issues that may affect such projection. And we felt that could be what was achievable. But now with the pandemic, which affects economic activity and so on. You cannot again stick to that. We have to revise. At one time, we thought the first wave of the pandemic was the end, but now there's second, and there's projection for the third, perhaps the fourth, and so on. So things will continuously change depending on the concrete effects on the ground. But at the end of the day, we are very sure that the economy, there's a rebound because we have corrected the fundamental issues which affect the economy. Have now, the macroeconomic factors, most of them are now correct, and we continue to address them. And making sure that as we move on, we carry everybody. For economy to succeed, you don't need the political government to be correct. You need everybody to share, contribute, and become the stakeholders of the vision.
There are a few, Your Excellency, whose hands are not on deck, those that are involved in corruption. Right from day one, when you assumed office, you spoke passionately against corruption, and you termed it even a war, and indeed it is a war. In this war, there have been battles. Have you won most of these battles?
No. What I can say, we must fight corruption. And this should not be a Mnangagwa crusade. This should not be a government crusade. It must be a crusade by the entire society of Zimbabwe. All subsectors of our society, subsectors of our economy must commit to fighting corruption. We as government must put legislation which assists in fighting corruption. To date, I see that we have done a lot in identifying corruption and taking action, but the entire system, the full chain is not through. You still have aspects of that fight which still drag their feet in the fight. So it is necessary for everybody in the public sector to commit themselves to fighting corruption, those in the private sector to commit themselves to fight corruption. Those in the churches should commit themselves to fight. At the family level, we should commit ourselves to fight corruption. Because corruption does not happen where there are no people. It is the people who commit corruption. And generally, the two who commit corruption are not the same people who would talk about it. Unless they become dissatisfied, then one squeals. But we need to put a spirit among our people. This is why I always say, let us be hard-working, honest, hard-working people. Be rewarded, be prosperous on the basis of honesty and hard work. We believe that if that can be embraced by our people, we will be on the correct track to achieve a society free of this cancer, this cage of corruption.
While you're still on corruption, you have shown it by firing those ministers that have shown that they are corrupt or have gone against the ethos of the expectations that you have. But when it comes to local authorities, there seems to be a soft touch from your administration to deal decisively with them. Is there an issue of where your administration feels they don't want to be criticized for attacking on them because they're part of the opposition, or what?
No, corruption is no affiliation. I act because I'm acting with the people in central government under my authority. I think you're aware that government has several tiers of authority. We have the central government and local authorities, whether they be municipal authorities, rural district councils, and so on, and they're governed by different legislation. I cannot just stand up and say, I fire a mayor so-and-so, I fire councillor so-and-so, that they're governed by different. But as they commit crime, the system which fights corruption should deal with them. For instance, Harare City Council, I think 1/3 of the councillors and the people there are under investigation. Some have been brought to court, and the process is going on. We will fight corruption wherever it is. Doesn't matter one belongs to opposition party or whatever. Corruption is corruption. And I believe that I would wish to see the other political parties also speaking with the same vigor against corruption as we do.
So how best are you dealing with some of the results of corruption, such as shortage of water? Most councils, most urban areas suffer from water shortages. We see maybe people sleeping in the queues overnight or having marshals to get water from them, and water is a critical resource. So that largely, in our view, is a result of that corruption. So what are you doing to ensure that the ordinary man is buffeted or is cushioned?
I think you realize that the municipalities have a role. They are set up to deal with service delivery for the community which they lead. It can be road council, urban council, like the Harare Council. They have the duty to provide services to the people. But because we have seen that they have failed, this is why under the second rule, we have instituted now a task force of an interministerial task force headed by the Vice President to deal, overriding the authority of these councils and so on, so that we can provide our people with the services which these authorities have failed to provide. So as central government, we are intervening, using central government resources to do so. This is now, you realize, question of housing, question of correcting wetlands, question of clean water. I think you've seen on TV now where new equipment is being installed. That equipment has not been bought by the municipal councils, no, or by the cities. It is the central government which is intervening, using our resources at the central government level to make sure very soon I'll be commissioning 2 dams, the Causeway Dam and so on, which again, in the process will bring water to Harare. And all that is now being done by central government because our people come first. And in the process also, we are saying to the people, they should bring to account the councillors they elect. They can't continue electing councillors who do not deliver. When councillors are elected, they're supposed to deliver services to the people whom we elect them and not bring misery.
On that positive note, Your Excellency, allow us to just take another short break before we can continue with our conversation. Thank you. Welcome back to this segment where we continue our independence conversation with His Excellency, the President, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa. The issue of devolution has been put into action under this particular administration. Where are we? And is it moving towards the direction that you envisage?
Indeed, the concept of devolution under the Second Republic, we view it as a proper instrument that addresses challenges at community level, at the lowest level of our communities, where the people at that level know what they want best. They know their priorities. So we at central government would not know what the people in Chipinge, in a ward in Chipinge, would want as a priority. the people in the Plum Tree, what they would want as a priority, the people in Kanyemba, what they would want as a priority for them. So all these areas, they have different priorities. And this can only be addressed by putting resources at that level. This is what devolution is doing. The first step we did was to allocate 300 million US dollars at the time, and we then put $3 billion. Now we are, I think, I'm not so sure about the figures, we are putting billions and billions of dollars to each province, which then is reallocated to each single district in the province. And in that province, they have wards. Each ward will determine what they want at that level. Some would want a clinic, some would want a deep tank, some would want a footbridge, some would want a classroom, whatever. But these are the basic priorities they want at that level. And some of the roads councils have now been able, with devolution funds, to purchase equipment to maintain roads at their level, at their community level, which is good. Instead of depending on us at national level to know that there is a bridge that has been washed away, now with the devolution funds, they're able to repair a road, they're able to repair a bridge at that level. But this does not mean central government ceases to have responsibility. We continue to exercise our responsibility, but we give opportunity to local authorities and communities to address the things that affect them most at that level.
Your Excellency, allow me to take you back to the macroeconomic. We've seen exports growing, particularly in the past year, where we earned more than $4 billion. But unfortunately, we've seen also the list of imports growing. And yet, on the other hand, the production capacity in industry has been rising from a low of 1510 to now above 35. How then do we marry the two, where imports seem rising, exports are trying to grow, but they cannot match the demand for imports? Where are these imports coming from?
What we should understand is that either a country becomes a market by other economic jurisdictions, or you choose yourselves not only to be a market, but to be a productive economic jurisdiction which imposes and goes to the markets of other economic jurisdictions. I remember in 2018, when we went to the International Trade Fair, and as we went around, the NAST University, Chinoy University, University of Zimbabwe, MSU, and so on, students there displayed, exhibited various inventions which they did, but it died there. So I then decided, I did two things. One, it was necessary to create or craft a policy where we must harness the talent of our boys and girls, number one. Two, we must discuss with the captains of industry so that we know what they expect the government to do for them to thrive. On the same platform, we must discuss with the captains of industry so they know what the government expects of them to do and what they themselves expect us to do and what they expect them to do. We share that platform. Then we went to the academia, the institutions of higher learning, and said the institutions of higher learning should produce products which produce goods and services. And to do so, I introduced innovation hubs. We first selected 6 universities where government put money to build innovation hubs. But now all the universities, all state universities have innovation hubs. At these innovation hubs, we get a list of all the imports, the things that we import into the country, over 2,000 items. You list them there and say to our boys and girls, you are talented, you are Zimbabweans. Look at this list. We are importing these things. Can you apply yourself so that some of these items can be produced? And it is creating wonders. Currently, universities are competing. Some register up to 70 patents a year and reducing the number of items or products that we import as a result of this. And after the innovation hub is where you bring your idea into reality. But once that is done, you now need to commercialize your product. So each university now, we've given them ground where they create industrial parks, where we again finance to produce the product at the commercial level. And then once patented, it can go into the market. And it is, I'm enjoying that. And the country is enjoying that. And the students are so happy with that. Just yesterday, I opened a commissioned the management institute in Masasa, which ought to have been funded by ZimDef. For years, this ZimDef was there, but it did nothing to show. But in 2 years, go and see what you're having there. State-of-the-art institute where students now can exercise their talents with no support from anywhere or domestic resources. You don't know how much our people, Zimbabweans, are talented if you give them the opportunity to excel and exercise their talents. This is what we are doing. And as a result, you can now see, because now the private sector tells the public sector and the institution of higher learning what they need, what products they need from universities. And the universities are restructuring the curriculum to produce products which fit industry.
Your Excellency have given us a very impressive list of what government is doing to ensure that production rises. Is private sector doing enough?
Not everybody. This is what I always say. As we move forward, we don't want to leave anybody behind, nor any place behind. Not everybody can embrace good ideas at the same time. But we will continue to preach. As I'm saying this because I now see the positive response from the private sector. I created what we call the Presidential Advisory Council, where the big guns in industry and commerce come and discuss with me as president and my colleagues and discuss what should we do to modernize, to mechanize, to industrialize our economy. We have that responsibility. We have the responsibility to create an economic environment where such things can thrive. And we discuss, and this is what is happening.
Your Excellency, you have said you do not want to leave anybody behind. And I think at a period when we are celebrating our independence, the viewers back home would want to know, in a climate where it is so polarized politically for Zimbabwe, they want to understand. There is one man called Nelson Chamisa who is standing aloof, standing there. What are the preconditions or what conditions are there for you to create a working relationship with them?
Well, you have mentioned this one Zimbabwean. You forget that him and his vice president went to America to ask for sanctions to continue to be imposed on Zimbabwe. So before they cut that biblical cord with the Americans, it is difficult to be proper Zimbabweans. We have created a platform where every genuine patriotic Zimbabwean can come and participate, and they use their talents and they contribute to the global, national vision. It's not a Mnangagwa vision. It's not a ZANU-PF vision. It's a national vision for our people. In a democracy, we debate issues, and the best debate on the day takes the day. That's what we must do. And we'll create a platform so that nobody is left behind. For instance, it does not follow that you should everybody say yes, yes, yes. I wouldn't want yes people around me. I want the people who argue with me, and I argue with them. At the end of the day, I know that those who are arguing against have the interests of the country at heart, and those who argue for, they have also the interests of the country at heart, and the based argument takes the day.
Any child, an errant child, would get a bit of a shambok to whip them into line, either physically or through other measures, maybe counseling. What are we doing with this child of ours, Nelson?
Well, I still believe that Mr. Chamisa is a young Zimbabwean. He still has that opportunity to positively contribute to his country. If he puts aside the vision for violent demonstrations against his country, being destructive, destroying property, and in the process people die, and if he decides that he shall have constructive debate, constructive opposition in the country, everybody will embrace constructive criticism, constructive debate, constructive contribution to the country. But if you are going to be destructive and they say, I will destroy in order to rise on destruction to power, then that is not viable.
And the defections that have been happening from the MDC, people coming over to ZANU-PF, does it speak to that childish behavior that you speak about?
Well, I think that as you go on, our people, our Zimbabwean people, are very sinful. Our people. They realize that the future lies with those who preach peace, harmony, and unity, not those who preach demonstrations. There is no country that is built on demonstrations and violence. Countries are built on unity, harmony, peace, and love. This is why what is happening is happening.
So talking about more members coming to join ZANU-PF, and the elections are just a few months away, are you confident that the party will win? Okay.
If we have a leader of a political party who goes into an election with the hope of not winning, that person should not be a leader of a party.
How confident are you that you
I'm extremely confident based on the work that we are doing and the positive reception which we receive from the public of what we are doing, and the resolution which we are achieving, both in terms of resolving hunger in the country, in terms of providing energy, in terms of providing good roads in the country, in terms of providing fuel, in terms of increasing and modernizing our health sector. I think with all these positive issues, which continues to improve, the people will feel that they must give us a chance to do more.
Mm-hmm. So your Vision 2030, was it prophetic, or was it the confidence that you have that you will still be?
It's born out of suffering and the wish to fight the challenges.
Your Excellency, let me take you back to the bilateral dispute between Harare and London, which was sparked obviously by the land reform program. Where are we now as a nation in terms of the compensation for affected farmers? And how is the relationship now? Is there any possibility? We had just recently talk about Zimbabwe rejoining the Commonwealth. Where is the progress now?
Let me assure you that Zimbabwe has never imposed sanctions on Britain or the United Kingdom. It is the United Kingdom that imposed sanctions on us. Their first reason was the land reform. It started 20 years ago. We have told them that the land reform will never change. It's irrevocable. we have corrected the imbalance which they themselves created. So it is them to adjust to reality, not us to adjust to their unreality. So it's very clear the ball is in their court. We as Zimbabweans, whether the British want us or not want us, is not an issue. We are happy we are in control of our land. And we say to the British, recognize that we are the masters of our land. Let us have relations which will contribute to good relations between the British people and the Zimbabwean people. It's good when we work together. But if they choose to make us enemies, it is not our choice, it is theirs. And those who have to change are them, not us.
Thank you, Your Excellency. It would also be very unjust for this conversation to end without looking at the security issues that are happening within the region, in particular in Mozambique. You were at a meeting just this week where you sat as heads of state and decided on matters. What is your word, particularly when Zimbabwe is celebrating an independence and there are insurgencies happening in Mozambique?
One, Mozambique is a sister republic to Zimbabwe. What affects Mozambique affects Zimbabwe. Two, Mozambique is a member of SADC. And whatever affects one single member of SADC adversely affects all members of SADC adversely. So when we met first as the Troika, we looked at the events happening in Cabo Delgado, and we came to the conclusion that there was a real need for a robust response to the terrorists in Cabo Delgado by SADC. So it is, we agreed that SADC as a region and as a bloc should assist Mozambique in repulsing the terrorists that have attacked Cabo Delgado and the Palma recently. And then we met as the double Troika, where we as Troika reported our position. And I'm happy to say the double Troika also adopted that position, which I believe when it is going to be submitted to the summit is likely to adopt that position that SADC as a bloc should contribute towards assisting Mozambique to deal with that problem.
Your Excellency, at this stage, allow us to delve into your private life a bit. What is your favorite meal?
Mukaka. Wakakora. Yeah. And wonderful.
And your music taste?
Gospel music.
Do you have any special gospel artist?
I cannot indicate which one. in case they won't vote for me, but I like them all. But the issue is I like gospel music.
We also understand that you are a very avid football supporter. You are associated with FC Platinum by virtue of your origin. But also we saw you at Highlanders getting a jersey. We saw you with Dynamos getting a jersey. Do you have any favorite football team that you have, either locally or internationally?
Earlier on, when I was minister, of course, I'm the godfather of FC Platinum. I was happy with that. But when I became president, it was not easy now to belong to one football club. Now all football clubs are my clubs.
Okay, so President, Your Excellency, what do you do in your spare time, if you've got any such, when you want to sit, relax and unwind? We hear you are such a hard worker, you are at the office ahead of most people. So when you say, I'm now relaxing and unwinding, what will you be doing?
Well, I'm happy that my commitment to work has also persuaded those around me like George Charamba. They now come very early to work.
Wow.
I work 6 days a week. Monday to Saturday. Then on Sunday, I go to my farm where I do my farming work. That is my week. It doesn't change. 6 days I'm at work here. But on Sunday morning, I leave here at 6:30 in the morning every Sunday. I go to my farm and I work there. Then at 4:30, I leave. I come back.
Okay. So do you as Zukuru have time with Zukuru, play time with Zukuru?
I wish they could. They complain. But it's very difficult. I hope that time will come down the line when I'll have time for my grandchildren.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Maybe just to say, if you could show the country the other personal side of you, how would you want it done? Would you want it by the farm?
I'm not so sure what you have in mind. I think the public knows that I'm their president. And the time really I am doing family work is when I'm at the farm. My family has been a farming family for ages. I was telling my colleagues that I first drove my first tractor in 1959 when my father bought the first tractor. So from that time on, we've just been farming, and I'm addicted to farming.
We have come to the end of our independence conversation with His Excellency, the President, Comrade E.D. Mnangagwa, where he has spoken on various issues to champion independence, issues to do with the economy, issues to do with devolution, issues to do with the security issues within the region and the land issue, and also about the political climate conditions in Zimbabwe. Mr. President, I want to thank you very much for sparing your time to be with us today here, to have this particular conversation with us. It's quite a privilege that we as women, we had this opportunity to sit down with you and have this particular conversation without us feeling inferior in any way because of the efforts that you have advanced to empower women. Thank you, Your Excellency.
No, thank you very much. I'm fully aware about the rise of women in this country. Some of my colleagues are getting afraid.
Zimbabwe nyika yedu sakati changosumudza mureza pinyitakaveza Zimbabwe atipeta irega atimboirega nati Zimbabwe nyika yedu sakati zikusumudza mureza pinyitakaveza Zimbabwe awita dati Zimbabwe Zimbabwe nyika yedu sakati changosumudza mureza pinyitakaveza Zimbabwe atipeta irega atimboirega nati Zimbabwe nyika yedu sakati zikusumudza mureza